turn on the timer. Wait a minute, do I need this for something? What does that mean? Tell me to do the timer or anything. Gosh, please. Okay, let's go. Let's stop talking since we're live. All right. Since we're beginning a new chapter, I am going to read the Hebrew to you. So let's, if you can, stand, cover yourselves for the reading of the verses. Now, I'm not standing, obviously, but that's because I'm tethered to wires. It's not a command of God. We do not have to do this or we're going to hell. It's nothing like that. It's just a show of respect that we Jews have been doing since the beginning. Okay, so this week we're in Shemot, chapter 23. It's like 30 or 33 verses here. I'm going to read through all of them. We begin with verse 1, which says, Lo tisa shema shav al tishet yadecha im rasha liyot ed Hamas. And you heard that right, Hamas, like the Hamas that's terrorizing Israel. That means violence, by the way. Then verse 2, Lo tiye achare rabim leraot velo ta'ane al riv linto achare rabim lehatot. Vedal lo tedar berivo. Ki tifka shor oyi vecha O hamoro toe hashev teshivenu lo. Ki tire hamor sona aha rovetz tachat masa. O vehadalta me'azov lo azov ta'azov imo. Lo tatet mishpat evyo necha berivo. Midvar sheker tircha benaki vezadik al taharog ki lo atzdik rasha. Veshochad lo tikach ki hashochad ye'aber hikchim visalef divrei zadikim. Veger lo tilchatz ואתם ידעתם את נפש הגר כי גרים הייתם בארץ מצרים. ושש שנים תזרע, got it, can you say that right? את ארזך ואספת את תבואתה. In verse 11, בחשביעית תשמטנה ונטשתה ואכלו אביוני עמך ויתרם תאכל חיית השדה, כן תעשה לחרמך לזיתך. ששת ימים תעשה מעשיך וביום השביעי תשבות למען ינוח שורך החמורך וינפש בין עמתך והגר. ובכל אשר אמרתי עליכם תשמרו בשם אלוהים אחרים לא תזכירו לא יישמע על פיך. 3 רגלים תחוג לי בשנה. את חג המזות תשמור 7 ימים תאכל מזות כאשר זיוויתיך למועד חודש האביב כי בו יצאת מצרים ולא יראו פני ריקם. וחג הקציר בחורי מעשיך אשר תזרע בשדה, וחג האסיף בזית השנה באספך את מעשיך מן השדה. 3 פעמים בשנה יראה כל סחורך אל פני האדון יהווה. לא תזבח על חמץ דם זבחי ולא ילין חלב חגי עד בוקר. ראשית בקרי אמתך תביא בית יהווה אלוהיך, לא תבשל גדי בחלב עמו. מאנוכי שולח מלאך לפניך לשמרך בדעריך, yes, it's masculine, ולהביאך אל המקום אשר הכינותי. הישמר מפניו ושמע בקולו, אל תמר בו כי לא יישא לפשעכם כי שמי בקרבו. כי אם שמוע תשמע בקולו ועשית כל אשר אדבר, ואהבתי את אויביך, וזרתי את זורעך. כי ילך מלאכי לפניך, והביאך אל האמורי, והחיתי, והפריזי, והכנעני, החבי, והיבוסי, והכחדתי. Capitalize some of those. I should have done that. לא תשתחווה לאלוהיהם ולא תעבדם ולא תעשה כמעשיהם, כי הרס תחרצם ושבר תשבר מעזבותיהם. Verse 25, ועבדתם את יהווה אלוהיהם, וברך את לחמך ואת מימיך, והסירותי מחלה מקרבך, לא תהיה משקלה ועקרה בארצך, את משפר ימיך המלא. את אימתי אשלח לפניך, והמותי את כל העם אשר תבוא בהם, ונתתי את כל אויביה אליך עורף. ושלחתי את הזרע לפניך, וגרשה את החיבי, את הכנעני, ואת החיתי מלפניך. לא אגר שכנו, it sounded like sheknu, it wasn't shehnu, מפניך בשנה אחת פן תהיה הארץ שממה, ורבה עליך חיה השדה. מעט מעט אגר שנו מפניך עד אשר תפרה ונחלת את הארץ. ושבתי את גבולך מים סוף ועד ים פלישתים, וממדבר עד הנהר, כי אתן בידכם את יושבי הארץ, וגירשתמו mi panecha lo tichrot lahem velelohehem berit. And finally in 33, lo yeshvu be'artzecha pen yachatiu otecha likit ta'avod et Elohechem ki yiyeh lecha lemokesh. You may be seated. These take a while, but since I do this so that you guys can go in later. I read it, as you know, very slowly, trying to pronounce every syllable very distinctly so that the student can go back and listen to it and learn to pronounce these words properly. That's why I correct myself when I think that it sounded wrong. Anyway, so in his book, a commentary on the book of Exodus, Umberto Moshe David Casuto begins chapter 23 by pointing out that the law is now changing from precepts that God's children are bound by his law to follow concerning those who have no help and or protection. In other words, widows and orphans and the poor, etc. And the honor they are legally bound to show their leaders. We've gone from that to laws concerning justice to all people. All right. So in Shemot 23:1, that's our first verse. Remember, that's Exodus if you don't know the Hebrew words. Literally in English, it would say, not shall bear up, heard false not, shall put, hand you with wicked to being witnesses, or witness rather, violence. That's the Hamas word. Anyway. So we begin with lo, which is no, it's not, it's the negative article. Remember, that's a sound-alike word because sometimes lo just means to him. Literally, it's be to he, but it can be to him. If you're hearing a weird noise in the background, that's the wind and the rain coming against our house. Because we've got that, what's that called, hurricane coming at us. Anyway, so then the next word is tisa, which literally means shall bear up. It's to take up, to lift up, to express the idea of raising up, to lift up the hand and swearing in violence, right? It's all of those kind of things. And a good example of it, we move down here to where I have my example, is in Bereshit, also known as Genesis, chapter 7, verse 17, where it says, the waters increased and bore up the ark. So it was literally the water that lifted up the ark. All right, so then it's Shema, which remember that's to hear, but this is the spelling is a little different because we're not so much talking about hear, understand, and obey. This is more about you've heard something, it's a rumor, it's a report, usually connected to an evil report. So it's hearsay and stuff like that. And it's from that same root, Shema, to hear with your ears. Then it's shav. So now we know it is a false report. It's wicked. Iniquity which is committed of wicked men. It's of falsehood and lies and emptiness and vanity and nothingness. So if you've heard a report that falls into that category, then it says all, which is another word for not or no. It's another negative article that connects to something, right? So here's a grammar rule. The first word in this verse was lo. Remember, that's that negative article. It's the other one, which also means no or not. Both words are words of negation that mean the same thing and do the same thing. And there is no grammatic reason to use them both in the same sentence, right? Thus, Casuto makes it clear that the use of both words in the same sentence was a result of the writer's fondness of variation. So there's no hidden secret here. Oh, he used lo here and he used all there, so we need some bullet points here to explain why. No, you just don't want to say the same word more than you have to in the same sentence. We have that same rule in English, right? Most languages do. And that's all this is. All right, so let's move on. The next word is tashet. Literally, it's shall put. You shall put. To put, to set, to place, to appoint, to establish. It's the same way we use our word for put. It's even used to set snares, to lay snares, to build a plot, right? Because you're establishing, anyway. To place one's hand on anyone, which is done by protecting. They use it that way because you put your hand on someone means that you're protecting them. You can put your hand on anyone to join with anyone in doing something. So if somebody's out hoeing his field and you jump out there and start hoeing the field with him, in Hebrew they would say you put your hand to him. If you put your hand on somebody and you pray for them, in Hebrew they would say you put your hand to them. If you go and somebody's doing something, you're plotting to hurt them, you have put your hand to them. It's all the just different ways of using this same saying. Then it says yadacha, so it's your hand, right? Next it says im, which means with, W-I-T-H. Then it says rasha. Ooh, that's wicked. That's from the word ra. Wicked, unrighteous, or non-Torah observant is generally how it's used, is of the non-Torah observant, right? Having an unrighteous cause, a cause that is contrary to the Torah, is an unrighteous cause. Remember, this is the Hebrew language, it's the Hebrew people, it's the Hebrew religion. So there's going to be a lot about the Torah here, if you follow what I'm saying. The next word is liyot, which literally is to being or to be. But in this case, it would be to being because it's the feminine plural ending. It's to be, to exist. And we'll get the idea here in a minute. Then this is Ed. So don't be Ed. Be Sam or Rob instead. No, just kidding. The word Ed is the Hebrew word for witness. It's someone who testifies, someone who bears testimony, right? And it's starting to come together. So don't be someone who's bearing false witness. Then it says Hamas. I've already pointed that out. That is the word that they describe when they're talking about the government of the place that they call Palestine on the news. There is no place called Palestine in Israel or anywhere near Israel. The non-Jews, who are those people? I don't want to say Arabs, Muslims. The Muslims that are there will never name it Palestine because they associate that with Judaism. The Jews aren't there. They have never at any time called it Palestine. This is something that the Western people did, that Christians did, not Jews and not Muslims. But when Yasser Arafat realized that he could call it Palestine, then, see, this is our place, it's Palestine, the Jews are doing bad things to us, that just perpetuated itself. And then now this group called Hamas, or violence, oppression, that's the weird thing is their big complaint is, oh, the Jews are oppressing us. Yet that's the name of their government, violent oppression. Just saying, just thinking out loud here. There's this thing called turn speak. I don't know if I've ever talked to you guys about this. It started, it was before Hitler because he got it from somebody's writing. Somebody else had written about it, and I don't remember who started it. But turn speak is if let's say you're Hamas and you shoot off 4 rockets at Israel, what you do is you tell the news channels like NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and MSNBC, and MSABC, and MSEIEIO, whoever they are, you tell them that Israel shot 4 rockets to Palestine. And that's what they report. That's what everybody hears. Because, well, anyway, let's not go into the because, but they always report what we call turn speak. So if any of those liberal media outlets are telling you that Palestine is shooting, or that Israel is shooting off rockets, you can bet your bottom dollar it's Palestine, it's Hamas that's actually shooting off the rockets. It's called turn speak. Hitler learned it from somebody else, and he did it. And then Yasser Arafat, he's the one that told the story. He said he was reading about Hitler and was impressed with Hitler's idea to use turn speak, and so he began to use turn speak. It's going on to this day. Anyway, so Hamas, violence and oppression. Here's your translation in verse 1. You shall not lift up, in this case your voice, in a false rumor. Do not, it says, join your hand. What does that mean? Do not take part in wickedness. You can say evil if you want. It's wickedness. Then it says be violent. It's an idiom, to be a false witness. So I'm going to read it with the idioms translated in such a way you'll understand them, right? So I'm not going to actually read them with the idiom. You shall not lift up your voice in a false rumor. Do not take part in wickedness to be a false witness. That's the way you're supposed to understand it. But if I read it this way, you shall not lift up in a false rumor, do not join your hand in wickedness to be violent, you might take that completely different, right? So we translate the idiom so that you understand what they meant by the idiom. You shall not lift up your voice in a false rumor. Do not take part in wickedness. Do not be a false witness. That's what it means. Now, of the words a false rumor, Rashi believed that this law was an instruction to judges against hearing only one side of the story. Even Ezra said that we cannot repeat rumors because it is slander. Now, Kasuto felt that this meant that we are not to bring false testimony before the courts. So, one thing that we need to point out here is that, yes, this part of the text is literally talking about court proceedings, but that does not mean that it's okay to do these things outside the court. Okay, so I can't go to the court and lie under testimony, lie while I'm giving testimony, but I can go out here in front of the cameras and lie, right? No. This law is still going to apply. So I don't want you to think that these guys are telling you that it's okay in one place and not in another, because it's kind of the way it reads. I know that's not what they meant by it, but that's kind of the way it reads if you start reading their work. So just be sure to know that even though we are talking about court proceedings, the law is the law, and you're under the law whether you're in the court or out of the court, right? Just saying. Okay, so under the words join your hand, Rashi felt this phrase referred to someone being a false witness to help someone with a false claim. And think about it. If joining your hand to somebody is like he's out in the field, you hoeing his field, if you go out and hoe your field, you join your hand to him. So if somebody's out there giving a false claim and you go in there and give a false claim with him, you have literally joined your hand to it. So Rashi's absolutely right about it. Even Ezra felt that this was to collaborate with someone to wrong someone who was innocent. Exact same thing. It is joining the hand to somebody. So both of them are absolutely correct. Now, Shemot, which, right, doesn't surprise anybody, right? All right, then Shemot 23:2, literally in English, and remember this is Exodus, we're in verse 2, or chapter 23. Literally in English, it would say, not shall be after great to evils, and not shall oppress upon strife to stretch out after great to stretch out, right? So are you beginning to understand why the English translations are not very reliable? I mean, I think that the one that you get with the Jewish Study Bible, is that what that thing's called? I don't want to mix it up with that Christian thing, but here it is. JPS, yeah, the Jewish Study Bible by Oxford. That was pretty good, but there's still places in it that they went a little too Western for my taste, got a little too far away from real Hebrew meanings. All right, so we start off with lo, which is the no and the not. It's the negative article. Tia shall be. So we've already had these words, right? This is to exist, to be, and all of that kind of stuff. Then we have ahare. Now that's after. It's what is behind, the hinder part, the extremity. So of a horse, you might call his backside the ahare, right? But it's also to be behind something that happens after. Like today, after today will be tomorrow. So you got to think of it in those terms. It's of place. It's to be behind, to be in the background. It's to be what is next, even. In Bereshit 22:13, it should then be read, and behold a ram in the background. In other words, not behind his back, like most of them say behind you, right? Which is not necessarily a wrong interpretation, but you may understand it wrong because you're thinking it's back here, and he's saying it's over there. Anyway, I probably made that more muddy than clear. It's a place, it's behind, it's after, it's to follow. Then we have the word Rabim, Rabim, Rabbi, Rabbi. Are you hearing rabbi there? You should be, right? Because it's the same word. And Rabim is what we would say rabbis in English. So Rabim is the real word for more than one rabbi, right? But this is also a verb and not a noun. And so we have, it means great, or in this case, greatness, or even great ones. Because when it has the gerund at the end, which you think of it that as ing, well, we can't say grading. So what we do with the gerund, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's the way I learned it. In a case like this, we would say great ones, O-N-E-S, right? But it's to be great, and to use a very old word, it's not even in the dictionary anymore, multius, or multus. Whether of one continuous thing or of collectives which contain many parts, many individual things. So it can be a crowd because there's many people there. It can be an ocean because there's many drops of water there. Just saying. To be numerous, great in number, large, vast. And then, of course, the Talmud is the first place that called, well, it really isn't the first place. If you're Jewish, you say the Talmud is the first place where they call the doctor of the law the Rav or the Rabbi, but actually the New Testament letters were written before that, and they call them Rabbi as well. So the Christians actually beat the Talmud to it. Anyway, then it's le raot, two evils. Evil, bad, physically as an animal. What? My dog's not bad, right? Bad of cattle, bad waters, wicked, evil, a manner of thinking and acting. So if we're talking about bad animals, we're talking about not animals doing bad things, but, well, yeah, you would call an ox that gores a person a bad animal. You would call a dog that bites a person a bad animal. But they also would call unclean animals, the Jews would call unclean animals bad animals. Just saying. Animals that tend to, like wild dogs and stuff like that, would be called bad animals. There's just a lot of different ways to use it. But this is from that root ra. And I want people to understand this particular word. Evil in the Hebrew world was more than just a way of acting. It wasn't just some person who took advantage of other people and some person who was, when we say, well, who would you say is evil in our world? Oh, murderers and rapists and stuff like that, right? You're going to say that. Well, of course, that's covered in it. But there's way more to it. As I was growing up, I had a stepdad that every time he got mad, that was quite often, man, his face would be all gnarled up, right? Just screaming and yelling at me. That's the definition, the true definition of evil in Hebrew, the word ra. They spend a lot of time talking about the distortion of the face, which is awesome because there's a verse, I don't remember which one, in the Hebrew Bible where it assures us that God has never distorted his face toward us in anger. Do you remember which verse that was? We studied that years and years ago, and now we don't remember which one it was, but that was a pretty cool thing to learn about it. So it's of saying hurtful things, it's of being rude to other people. All of that stuff is lumped together in the meaning of evil. But they even call people who are sad and depressed and down all the time, they even call that evil. That's a pretty wide-ranging word. Then it says velo, which is and not ta'anet. You shall not respond. It is applied to anyone who pronounces anything solemnly and with a loud voice of someone who affirms anything. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Right? That's going to be covered in that. It's of a judge giving a sentence. It's of a witness giving evidence, solemnly affirming anything, hence to testify, to lift up the voice, to begin to speak. It's all of those things, right? So and in a court, that's here you're seeing the legal terminology here, right? Then it's all, which is generally used for the word upon or above something. Like if you have a foundation, you build a house upon the foundation, right? So then it says reeve. So on the foundation, what's your foundation? Strife. Reeve, strife, contention. What's funny about this is one of those words where if you really start following it back to its root and all that kind of stuff, one of the things that stands out to me is that the description in the Gesenius is that of a cat fight. It's it's of the kicking and the slapping and the punching and the scratching and the pulling of the hair, it says. It's pretty funny. Then the next word is li netot. That's to stretch out, to extend the hand in threatening. Don't you dare, I'll do this, right? It's just, you extend the hand to shake somebody's hand. You extend the hand to, oh, I give up. But you also extend the hand to worship God, right? It's literally the moving out of the hand. What else? To cast down enemies that are ready to fall. And this one's a little strange because we're talking about the strife side of things here. It's not just the physical stretching out, but they call stretching out the hand in strife here was if the enemy was about to fall, you don't just let them surrender. You go over and then murderize them. You know what I mean? It's just like uh, your reaction was just not called for. There just wasn't any reason to go that far, kind of a thing. Then we have a word that we've already had, ahare. That's the word that's after, behind, that kind of stuff. Then we had lehatot. There's your stretch out hand, stretching out again. And so, well, here's your translation, verse 2. You will not follow a crowd to wickedness, and you will not turn away the strife of a crowd by following the threatenings of a crowd. Let me read that again and listen closely because this is very different than anything I found anywhere else. You will not follow a crowd to wickedness, right? So think about what's going on in America right now. The crowd's going out and committing wickedness. They're going out and beating each other up. They're going out and burning down buildings. They're going out and burning down cars and destroying property and stuff like that. You won't follow a crowd to wickedness. And you will not turn away the strife of a crowd by following the threatenings of a crowd. We'll talk about that more. So here's an alternate translation. You will not follow a crowd to evils, because that's what most of them say, and do not respond to the strife by turning aside, I guess from truth, following the crowd to turn aside judgment. Now, this is what you generally get, but it's not what the text says. There's an old saying, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want some milk. It has been my observation over the years that paying kidnappers a ransom encourages other kidnappings. Just as giving North Korea money to stop their nuclear program, as President Clinton did, only paid for it. The same thing happened in Iran with our last president, right? Gave them money to stop, and what did they use the money for? Our country has been in the grips of mob rule for some time now. It started off as political correctness in place of civility and manners. and has blossomed into things such as democratic lawmakers demanding that books be banned in our classrooms, as well as cities taking down statues. And when the cities don't do that fast enough, mobs do it. We have moved on to people defacing a statue of Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and even Columbus. And as long as we continue to give the mob the proverbial cookie, the insanity will continue. Right here, God told us not to do this. One nation under God. Of the words, follow a crowd to wickedness, even Ezra warned against thinking that an entire crowd cannot be wrong. Well, if everybody seems to think it, then it must be right. That's what he's saying. Don't think that. But also pointed out that if they are right, you need to judge with them. Don't judge against them just because the whole crowd thinks that way. Because what if they're right? They're not likely to be right. Mob violence is never going to be right. When you get mobs and crowds of people pushing agendas and stuff like that, it is almost never going to be right. Casuto's commentary on Exodus says, in this verse 2, as in the preceding one, the general prohibition is followed by a particular admonition with regard to conduct in court. And he's right about this. I've already said that this is truly talking about court proceedings, but it still applies outside the court. All right, let me back up and talk about that second part. It's one of those things where often, if you don't understand the idiomatic language of the Bible, it becomes difficult to translate this stuff. So you not follow the crowd. You don't get in the crowd and just go off and do what they do. That's a bad idea. And you will not turn away the strife of a crowd by following the threatenings of a crowd. So you see what I'm talking about. The crowd says, if you don't get rid of these, we're going to. And so what's happening? We're going down. The cities are going down. They're taking down the statues here all over the place, right? And God's telling us, don't do that. First off, there shouldn't be statues anywhere in America if we're truly one nation under God. Why? Because God forbid it. You cannot have 3D images, three-dimensional. That's what they mean by graven, because the meaning behind the Hebrew word for graven is shadow. In other words, three-dimensional. So you can have pictures of George Washington, you can have pictures of Abraham Lincoln, but what you cannot have are statues like the Statue of Liberty. If you're one nation under that God, the Jewish God, the Judeo-Christian God, you're not allowed to have any of that stuff. So it shouldn't have been there in the first place. But if it is, you're not going to satisfy that crowd by taking those down. Because what happened the second they started taking them down? They started going after more and more and more. You're giving the crowd the cookie, and they want milk to go with the cookie, right? Anyway, hopefully that makes some sense. That's why this thing is spiraling out of control the way it is, because we're not listening to God. All right, verse 3, the very short one. Literally in English, it would say, and poor not shall honor in strife ye. Starts off Vidal, which is and poor. It's to be feeble, to be weak, to be powerless. Rich people can be powerless. I mean, if you're rich and a dictator comes in and takes over your country, you just became poor. You just became feeble. You just became powerless. All of those things are what they call poor in Hebrew. Doesn't mean that you don't have money. It doesn't mean that you don't live in a mansion. It just means one or all of these things. Just trying to make sure everyone knows that. Then the root of this word is dalal. It's to hand down, to be pendulous, to swing, to wave as a bracket. But it's really to be languid, feeble, weak. So you can be very, very rich, right? And be very, very feeble and very weak. Used of men as being in a feeble condition, of the eyes as languishing with desire. Oh, if only these people would stop tearing stuff down, that kind of thing. All right, then we follow that with lo, which is the negative article, and then it's te, I don't know, tedar is not right. It should be, it really should be tehadar. I think I spelled that wrong. Shall honor. You hear people, we watched a TV show just the other day. One of the characters in the show was Hadar. This is that guy's name, right? It's honor. Shall honor. You shouldn't honor poor people. Remember, they use words differently in Hebrew. Barach is blessing usually, but it can also be cursing. Yes, it can. So, because if the ultimate thing God can do is bless you, then somebody says, may God not bless you. They're saying, lo barach. Then they're saying, may God give you everything that's the opposite of a blessing. So even though the word still technically means blessing, it can be used for cursing. And so Hebrew does things like this. But it's to show favor in this case. Don't show favor. Then it says, berivo, in strifey, literally. In strife is contentious. Contention. All right, so here's your translation. And the poor you shall not show favoritism. That's the word hadar, honor, in his trouble. You don't show favoritism in his trouble. Now, of the words favor a poor man, Rashi warned against ruling in a man's favor because you are sympathetic. In other words, stick to the truth. Even Ezra said that ruling in a poor man's favor when he is wrong does not help him. And we have that problem going on here in America. You've got people committing crimes. The judge says, oh, we're going to let you off this time, but if you do it again, and then they do it again. Surprise, surprise, right? Pseudo's work agrees with both of these statements. Onkelos wrote that we should not rule in a poor man's favor because of the poor man's dire situation. Just don't go there. Stick with God's law. Stick with truth. That's what they're saying. Now, the next three verses are placed here because of association. So when you read people saying, "Oh, this is out of whack. This shouldn't be here," no, it should be here. They put it here because of association, not because it's chronological. Because the idea of chronological order did not exist in Hebrew in this time period. Didn't exist in the first century either, by the way. So the parts of the New Testament where you get all these scholars running around saying, "Oh, this shouldn't be here." Yes, it should. It's there because of association. They don't do things in chronological order. Well, some of it seems to be in chronological order. Of course it does, because it tells the story. We do the same thing. We tell a story. We start at the beginning. We start working our way through it, and suddenly we realize there's no way this person knows what I'm talking about unless I fill in some other information. So then we go out of chronological order and back up. Well, see, the reason why that happens is because blah, blah, blah. And then we pick back up in the order of the story. That's all this is. That's all I'm saying. what I'm saying. Okay, so, yeah, we might have enough time for this. Verse 4. Literally in English, it's, for you meet ox, enemy you, or donkey he, go astray, make return, shall return us to he. You can almost understand that from that, right? So the key is for Chief God. So for if or because of you, or for you will meet, you will stumble upon, you will come across. It's really not the right. Here we go. To light upon anyone, to meet with him, to cross paths with, if you will. This is shor. That's an ox. That's the Hebrew word for ox. Or a bull, because it's from the idea of the horns, right? So if you cross paths with an ox or a bull, then it says, O Yivecha, that's your enemy, your adversary, somebody who persecutes you. The idea, Jusinius believed, to be that of breathing, blowing, puffing. It was the idea of the nostrils moving in and out from the hard breathing of anger. So you call him your enemy, your adversary. So now you've crossed paths with the ox or a bull that belongs to somebody who really, really doesn't like you. Then it says O, which in Hebrew is or, we think of it as or Hamoro, or his donkey, Toad, which has gone astray. It's wandering, it's meandering, it's those things. Hashev, make return, make it return. To turn about, to return. So you get the idea. So now you're being told you must return it. Then it says, Tishebenu, shall return. No, us shouldn't be there. To turn about, to return. So return it, you shall return it. First off, when they say the words twice, you're talking about an idiom. It adds emphasis and stuff like that, but it makes it idiomatic. Then it says lo, which is, this is the sound alike. This isn't the negative article. This is to him. So your translation then is, if you encounter your enemy's ox or his donkey wandering about, you shall absolutely return it to him. Your enemy's ox. Even Ezra thought that we should help our enemy because he might be poor, and our help would be a meritorious act. I just think that's ridiculous, but not wrong, but ridiculous. It's just, oh, I get to pat myself on the back because I helped this ox find his way home. That's the way that strikes me. I just really don't like it. Kasuda pointed out that this verse speaks of the enemy, while Deuteronomy 22, 1 through 3 speaks of our neighbor. They're almost identical, but one's of our enemy, the other is of our neighbor. Onkelos pointed out that the repetition of the word for return shows us that it is idiomatic. It literally says it's idiomatic in the Onkelos. The Babylonian Talmud in Bava Metzia 31a says that the repetition shows us that we must return the animal or the object, because remember, it's idiomatic. And if it's idiomatic, then the animals are just examples. It's not just, oh, well, it's his dog, not his ox, so I don't have to mess with it, right? We need to know this. That's why they make it idiomatic. Those are just examples. So it says the animal or the object, no matter how many times we find it in the wrong place. Well, my initial thought is I disagree with that completely, wholeheartedly. But then my next thought is I've read something like this elsewhere. How many times should I forgive my enemy? 7 times? And the response was 7 times 7. Sounds almost exactly like the Babylonian Talmud, doesn't it? I'm just saying. All right, well, I guess we'll go on to the next one. Verse 5. In English. For you shall see donkey hate you, lies down under burden he, and stop you from leave, to he leave, you shall leave, with ye forbear. All right, so it starts off with ki, which is if or because. Tir'eh, you shall see. So if you see, it's to see with the eyes, with your eyeballs. You can see it. It's right there. Hamor, that's the donkey. So if you see a donkey, sona'acha, that's of he who hates you. Hate, revulsion, disgust, dislike, distaste, nausea, horror, loathing. Yeah, you've just seen the donkey of the guy that hates you. Rovets. It's down for the count. It is lying on the ground. And this word is properly used of quadrupeds. So that's an animal with four legs, quad, four, which lies on their breasts with their feet up under them. It's of those kind of things. So if you see this thing lying down, tachat, which is under, masao, under his burden. So that's a pack that he has on his back. So what's happened is the pack probably wasn't too heavy, but probably it has shifted and it knocked him down. And so now he's pinned under this thing. So if you see this, which means if the donkey has the load and he's pinned under it, that most likely means that the person who hates you, who loathes you, who just gets nauseated at the thought of you, it's his donkey and he's standing there with the donkey trying to figure out what to do, right? The hadata, and stop you. To leave off, to cease, to desist. It's stop. You know what it means. You will stop. Me'azov, from leave. You will stop from leave. This word is to loosen the band, to let go the beast of its bonds. If you've ever seen horses, you know when they've gone for a ride, the people will take the saddle off, and the last thing they do is take the bridle off and let the horse out into the field. And what's the horse do? It runs around, jumps up and down, and kicks and all that kind of stuff. This is the image behind this. You know, you loosened its bonds and let it go, right? And it's important here. Then it says, lo, it's to him. Azov, this is the same word. It's leave, to loosen the bond. Then it says, ta'azov. Then it's 3 times they've used this word. So there's going to be some real significance here. This is emo, with he. So in other words, this is making sure you know that you've seen the donkey. It's fallen under its, its pack is on it, and it's pinned down, and you're seeing that owner is with that animal. Wow. So what is it really saying? It's saying if you see the donkey and he who hates you lying under his load, and you would, it says cease to forsake, right? That's an idiom. You would rather leave him to deal with it. It says you will not forsake. That's idiomatic. You will help him rearrange the pack. So, reading it such that you understand it. If you see the donkey of he who hates you lying under his load, and you would rather leave him to deal with it, you will help him rearrange the pack. Of the words of the donkey, Rashbam said, or he added, or any other animal. And he's right, because remember, this is idiomatic, so it's not just about animals. It could be any other object. Back then they couldn't have thought of this. Well, they could have. What if it had been a wagon, and all of the stuff on the wagon had gotten all discombobulated and the wagon fell over? It would cover that. It'd be the same thing with the pickup. Somebody overloaded the pickup, and maybe the tires blew out. You need to help him with that. Or maybe he fell, it's on its side. You need to help him with that. So he's adding of any other animal because he believed that the donkey was just an example, and he was right about that. Of the words, you would rather leave. Even Ezra believed that we should help get the pack off the donkey so that it can stand up. There's good reason for that. Remember the letting loose and all that? Well, that's how you let loose the pack on a donkey, is you untie it. Onkelos added you should unload the animal with him. So here's where we're going to get some real clarity from Kasuto. Kasuto pointed out that that this is a word play. Azov ta'azov. It's a word play. He said that while they have the same Hebrew form, in other words, they seem to be spelled the same, the verbs are derived from different words and thus have different meanings. Thus, Azov means to forsake, and ta'azov means to rearrange or to arrange. In this case, it's going to be rearrange. So you see why the guys said what they did about rearranging it, if you will. So now that you know that, let me read that again. If you see the donkey of he who hates you lying under his load, and you would rather leave him to deal with it, you will help him rearrange the pack. You know, that happened to me when I was young. This boy and I had become enemies, if you will. And I was riding my bike, and I used to ride miles and miles and miles away from home, and I was a long way from home. And the chain came off of this bike, and I was having all this trouble, couldn't figure out how to get the chain back on. It was one of those newfangled 10 speeds or whatever it was, and I couldn't figure it out. And here comes that mortal enemy of mine over the hill in his dad's pickup. He was like 12 years old driving his dad's truck. He gets out, walks over, doesn't say a word, puts that chain right back on that bike and walks off. And I know, it's like, thank you all the way. You know, I said it several times. He never said a word to me, just got back in his truck and he drove on. That was very Torah observant. All right. That's as much as we can do for today. Shalom, shalom, y'all.